G'day, I'm Mark from Self-Sufficient Me, and in this video I'm going to show you how to directly sow tomato seeds into the ground or a garden bed for maximum success. Let's get into it. Firstly, why would you want to sow tomato seeds directly into the garden bed instead of into punnets for planting out as seedlings later? Well, directly sowing tomato seeds into the garden has several advantages, such as stronger root development. Tomatoes grown from direct seeding develop deep, undisturbed root systems, making them more resilient to drought, wind, and pests. No transplant shock. Seedlings started in punnets or trays need to be planted out, and this transplanting can cause problems like stress or shock because you disturb the root ball, slowing the plant's growth, or in severe cases, even killing it. You get more of a normal growth cycle. Have you heard of the expression leggy plants? Well, this can happen when seedlings grow too long in a protected environment like a greenhouse, waiting to be planted out into the garden. Direct sown seeds germinate and grow compact and strong, immediately adapting to the natural outdoor environment, leading to hardier plants that are better adjusted to local conditions. There's no need to harden the plants off. You know how you've been advised to take a seedling in its punnet and then remove it from the greenhouse for a few hours, put it back in, expose it to sunlight really slowly so that it can adapt to the conditions. And then finally, after a few days or sometimes a week, you can then plant it in its outdoor location. Well, you can skip all of that. And finally, direct sowing is less work and lower cost. There's no need for seed trays, grow lights, heating mats, or indoor space. This saves time and money compared to starting seeds indoors in a greenhouse and using all that equipment. In this example, I directly sowed several varieties of heirloom and organic tomatoes in this gourd tunnel raised bed configuration. The crop I had in before was some bitter gourd that had taken over the tunnel, and one of the problems in our subtropical climate is the rainfall. We get a lot of it, and this constant barrage of rain, mostly through the summer months, can wash away nutrients. So before sowing the seeds, I had to do a lot of refurbishments to these raised beds to ensure that the tomatoes had enough nutrients and good soil structure to grow well. Out of all the crops I grow, tomatoes, especially the larger varieties, get the most pre-planting soil preparation because it's a hungry plant. It grows big fruit, takes a lot of energy to grow, and it's also susceptible to disease and pest attack. So you want to get these plants off to the best start possible. In this case, I raided the last of my compost bays and had just enough to top up both long garden beds with rich compost made mostly from banana plant waste. The structure of the compost means it holds water for longer, giving the tomatoes access to moisture and nutrients for longer. The next product I added was some rock minerals. Now, depending on your soil, adding extra rock minerals might not be completely necessary, but it can't hurt. What it might do is just give your tomato plants the edge, those missing micronutrients and trace elements that can make your tomato plants go from good to excellent and improve productivity. After the rock minerals, I add organic fertilizer. In this case, the fertilizer is plant-based. The reason I use organic fertilizer, whether it's plant or animal-based, is because it's more sustainable than synthetically made fertilizer. It won't add extra salt to your soil. It encourages microbial activity, and besides feeding your plants, it adds extra fill to your growing medium. I then give the whole lot of good watering in, and this settles the additives down and helps to combine them into the soil before I go adding the mulch. And remember, mulch, mulch, mulch. I prefer a seed-free straw or sugarcane mulch. Lucerne is good too, but it can be extra expensive. And what this does is it locks in the moisture, it protects the roots from excess heat or cold, it suppresses weeds, it keeps the topsoil from crusting over and repelling water, it slows heavy rain down so less nutrients get lost. I always give newly laid mulch a watering to hold it in place, it reduces dust and it makes it easier to part, which is the next step. I've decided to sow several different varieties of tomato from Survival Seeds Australia, which are also in the USA, mostly larger varieties, and sowing them now in early autumn in our subtropical climate is because I want the fruit to be ripening in winter when there are less fruit flies around. I don't want the fruit ripening in spring or early summer, even though the tomato plants do like the warmer spring weather here. The problem is that the fruit fly, which is different to the kitchen fruit fly, this is a European and Queensland fruit fly that stings the big tomatoes, which is a favourite of theirs, and it lays a maggot inside, which then eats the fruit from the inside out, turns it to a garbage, mushy, rotten mess, which is really disappointing. You can bag the fruit or you can try to net the whole tomato plant, but it's a real pain to do that. You can also grow cherry tomatoes. They're more acidic and the fruit fly don't tend to sting them as much. But this year, I wanted to grow some nice, big, juicy heirloom toms. So this is what I'm doing. So the next thing I do is part the mulch, making small circles about a foot apart or slightly less, close to the base of the trellis for the vines to grow up. In each circle, I add some of my homemade seed raising mix made from sifted compost, and the reason why I add some of this compost on the base is just to give the seeds a buffer from any concentrated additives that might burn the seed or seedling when it first germinates. I then sow the seeds on top of the compost base and cover with some more of that compost seed raising mix. I sowed the front row in batches of 4 for each variety, and on the back row I sowed with the ticker variety only because I've never tried growing it before, and apparently it has excellent taste, it's an early cropper and has very good disease resistance. So I'm keen to find out how well that goes on that back row there. I sow the tomato seeds generously to give the best chance of at least one of the seedlings coming up in each spot. If they all germinate, I will then thin them out and keep the strongest one to grow on. When you direct sow, anything can happen. You're out in the wild. You can have rodents dig them up, you can have snails and slugs chew them off, other types of insects. You can have possums come along and chew them as well as the seedlings emerge. And some seed might just fail to germinate. So I find over sowing is a good strategy. I do keep watch over the beds to see of any signs of rodents or pests digging up the seeds or eating the seedlings, and if I do find this happening, I will cover the area with a wire basket or plastic domes to protect them. These domes can also be used to create a slightly warmer environment, like a mini greenhouse, except you're direct sowing. I'm doing that for some capsicum seeds that I've directly sown over there, and I just know that the capsicum needs a little bit of extra warmth at this stage, so I've covered some of them over, not all, just kind of experimenting. But yeah, that can also be a good ploy in a cooler climate if you want to direct sow, create that little mini greenhouse effect. And then it's just a matter of waiting for the seedlings to emerge, and as you can see, they are coming up, and that's the same for pretty much all 40 or so little areas that I've sown. I've had a really great success rate with all the seeds, which is cool. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wait till they get about 4 inches high and their second set of leaves, and then I will start thinning them out to the strongest seedling and then train that one plant up the trellis. So why doesn't everyone direct sow tomatoes? Admittedly, tomatoes directly sown grow best in a warm climate with a long growing season. Tomato seeds need a soil temperature above 15 degrees Celsius or even a constant 20 degrees Celsius for them to germinate correctly and grow well. People who live in cold climates with a shorter summer might prefer to sow their tomato seeds indoors or in a hothouse earlier to get a head start on the season. Although I've often wondered myself, is there a considerable difference between direct sowing and planting out from a greenhouse? Thinking about all that extra time it takes to plant out and the transplant shock. I don't know, I've never run that experiment before. I've never pitched a direct seed sown against a transplanted tomato. Does that direct sowed seed catch up to that transplanted seedling and grow at the same rate or overtake it? I'd be interested to know your experience. Maybe you can share that in the comments section below. So yeah, there are some legitimate reasons why you would want to not direct sow, but I would encourage anyone that's in my climate with our conditions to give direct sowing a go. I think it's the best way to do tomatoes. And if you are wondering what I'm growing at the moment in the veggie garden especially, it's always been a little hard to go through the list until now. If you want to see an up-to-date garden plan or a full list of what I'm growing, you can. Just go to the Self-Sufficient Me Garden Planner online. I'll paste the URL below and you can check it out at your own leisure. Yeah, I think this garden planner is a really interesting and good tool, especially just to be used even for me to show you guys what is growing on at the moment in our garden. So yeah, check out that garden planner and my own garden plan. Even if you don't want to join up, you don't have to, you can look at it online. You don't have to sign up to anything, but I would encourage you to sign up and give our garden planner a bit of a go. You can do that for free. And yeah, let me know what you think. Help improve it, whatever. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a big direct thumbs up. That's direct. And share the video around, subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Cheers. Bye.